There exists a hardcore character, stronger and more mesmerizing than the main hero himself. So this is the story of a guy with a serious case of fantasy fever who fancies the world of magic and swords. For a long time, he owned nothing but fantasy books and games, pulling off all-nighters for these as usual. Shane Ren, a fourth-year university student, sets aside his week-long preparation for the job and enjoys his long-awaited, newly launched game. Forget job applications, because this game is like a 5-star virtual realm. Here's the thing, the first game was all about the descendants of the heroes beating the bad guy, the Demon King. But Part 2, a hardcore, famous sequel, is all about beating the shit out of those who are trying to revive that jerk back. Now, this is the part that will make someone like Ren glued to the screen for days, which he totally did this weekend. So yes, a victorious battle on a pile of rocks, and Ren, in his PJs, cheering like a little girl over his couch. Turns out that the hero's buddy killed the Saint Girl, unleashing true chaos this time in the kingdom with a huge pile of unanswered mysteries. This led to the Emperor commanding the hero to subjugate his friend, and this plot would continue in the third installment. Moving on, Ren figures out how others have already scratched their heads to bring out the conspiracy theories about this friend guy being the mastermind for the next part. However, he is craving for some hidden skill to pop out in this second play. Just then, this special invite to this game about starting off with a special story with the demon sword summoning skill pops up. But this just throws a curveball at Captain Clueless, who has no idea if any character has this ability. Anyway, he dives in, only to be mind blown by this strange turn of events, vanishing him into thin air. A sudden change of scenery. An old man chuckles about how this little infant got a case of the bright future vibe. The lady manages a light smile, hoping this little guy grows up fine. However, it looks like Ren got zapped into the body of this little baby without consent, wondering if this is a dream or a harsh reality. Flashing back to the special story invite, his pea-sized brain cannot grasp how this situation is playing, wondering if he actually transmigrated. While Ren whines in his mind, his mother, ever so cheerful, has already decided his name to be Len Ashton in this life. In Legend of the Seven Heroes 2, the ex-buddy of the main lead unleashes chaos. However, Ren's little body is throwing a hissy fit about how he has to crash land into this game. With no slightest familiarity with this nutjob, Ren's whiny ass complains of being trapped in this dude's body, asking why him, out of all. This mysterious young boy practices his sword skills with such hard work. Just then, his floppy jump trips him over the ground as his daddy tells him not to hop like a bunny for no damn reason. Cackling like a hyena, his father finds this tiny dude's breathless fall quite amusing. Sweating bullets like crazy, this skinny boy whines about not being able to flinch a muscle. However, his dad is busy admiring his son's extraordinary sword skills. 7 years have passed since Ren transmigrated. Moving on, there is the western military nation of the Elfin continent, the Liamel Empire, and one of the no-name villages. It came as a shock to this tiny Ren, who was living in denial. However, this baby has shaken hands with fate and settled down, after spending half a year in this baby's body sucking melons. Not to mention, this little Ren, who is Len Ashton in this world, also sees a status screen visible only to him, showing nothing about his strength levels. This rookie kid has no idea what demon sword summoning is all about. He does recall some hidden tricks to whip out original skills. Plus, Ren recalls having a set of unique skills for certain characters, just like this demon sword summoning. With a snap of magic, a wooden sword appears out of thin air, dashing against this kiddo's expectations. After reading a big-ass description, Len figures this technique to just be a starter kit. After the Demon Sword of Wood, which helps with small attacks, comes the Demon Sword of Metal in level 2, which might level things up. However, this little duckling might get a nasty headache after running out of magic fuel while summoning these swords, which brings him to everyday practice to avoid his head-exploding moments. Just then, his daddy barges in for his turn of coochie co-play time, while Len prepares himself for future doom. So Len has decided to hop on this adventure in his own way, learning everything to become a super magic-wielding dude. Looks like this isekai adventure is about to level up. Flashing 7 years ahead, Len's dad asks this young boy to whip out any demon sword from the storeroom, as it is time to polish up his swordsman skills. Whipping out his wooden demon sword, he charges at his daddy in a full-blown attack as his daddy demands to go on until he loses the ability to move. Although this dimwit lasted 30 minutes in the first training session, which ended up pushing his proficiency status to level 2. However, he remembers his dad's demon stone turning out to be a total dud. This dead-ass game looks to not be making it easier for Ren. With another month of hardcore training, the dearest daddy is proud of his son, pushing his limits to great lengths every day. Later on, Len figures that he needs a few more days to kick up his level for this unique technique. As things just get really interesting, his mother patches up his bruises, telling him how his father is a brute sports maniac after all. Even after being in the Ashen family of knights, his mother is a little nervous about this whole knight thing, wondering if the bravery turns out to be a curse. Milieu is glad of his achievements, but his dad assures her that he packs hard gains and is less careless as the family matters to him more. Back in the real world, where Ren's divorced mom slowly grew distant, this dude feels more fulfilled with this crazy quest on the side, even if it weighs on him now. Suddenly, in one of his training sessions, Ren complained of feeling a little bit lighter for some reason. Just then, he launched a damn hard blow at a faster pace, blowing his daddy's mind, and ended up breaking his sword in half. Lifting his son in the air with eyes wide as saucers as he feels his unimaginable strength popping out of thin air, his daddy congratulates him on being a skill bearer. This confirms to Len that he has finally leveled up, while his father drools about Len's future as a knight in the capital. Although his parents are dumbstruck by his reaction to not finding the skill's name, Len believes it is better this way. Moving on, Len reveals how he wishes to live peacefully, being the father's success in this village rather than being a famous knight, helping the village prosper this way. Len steps into his golden cage to enjoy living with his sweet parents as a whole new person, ready to rewrite any brutal future happenings. But things are about to get tricky when this kiddo finally runs into the girl he is supposed to kill in the next few years. On Liam Empire territory, there exists such a gorgeous beauty who happens to have wiped out the majority with her sword skills, whining about how boredom might kill him. Upon asking, this sweet chick learns how this old armored man Vios got some patrol duties today to the northwest. Turns out that Vios is secretly on a monster-slaying mission. Meanwhile, Len, not a bright one, hasn't leveled up in 3 years. With his progress stuck in the mud, 659 pits in 3 years is nowhere near 1,500 pits. Slacking off with his dad in the field some days, short training sessions only earn him 1 point. Sending good morning vibes to Grandma Rig, he bets that this magical power is enough to chill in this village. Moving on, Grandpa Rig, with her sweet talk like chatterbox, tries to butter this kid up, stating how her father brags about his son being a future hotshot knight in the capital someday. However, he lets the old lady know that he has no plans to leave this village. Out of the blue, Grandma's face shoots in horror as she hurries Len to return home, claiming that these knights are Lord Baron's lackeys. Arriving home, Len finds this old-timer, with a quick apology for the sudden intrusion to his father, bearing news that there's a beast in town going on a rampage. Len figures Baron rules this territory, with every knight getting a higher-up noble calling this feudalism. Turns out that his father was assigned to protect this village by Lord Baron. Moving on, Vios mentions this beast as being a fast-paced critter-type D-ranked beast moving at a windy speed. Other than that, Vios desires to recruit Len's father for this patrolling mission to slay this beast. The organizational guild built the ranking system, with rank 1 being the toughest and G rank the lowest, making this monster a total newbie boss. But bad news, the backup needs 20 days, putting them out on their own. While his daddy offers Lord Baron's lackeys enough space to rest for a while, Len scratches his head to put his game knowledge to good. Moving on, his father, Roy, asks Len to greet the captain of knights, which makes him realize how this old dude is the highest ranked knight in the territory. With fine-ass guest service, they bid them farewell when some lackeys blabber about Len, rumored to be a skill bearer the same age as their lady. Back home, Roy calms this little dude, bragging about slaying a D-rank master before too. With a quick trick up his sleeves, Roy shares about clearing out animal trails and reducing little boars to keep the big bad beast off these premises. Len wonders if his dad is overdoing it a bit. At bath time, Len begs his dear old daddy to help him hunt, but dad says no way until the beast is slayed. Roy faints in exhaustion, making little Len wonder if his 10-year-old streak of a peaceful life is about to be tattered. On the 10th night, Roy's late, freaking the heck out of Milieu and Len. So these two rush out only to find Roy sitting under the shade of a tree on the other side of the bridge, bloodied to the ground. A desperate, horrific situation sets in when Milieu tries to wake Roy up from this bloody slumber. Suddenly, a wild boar attacks out of nowhere, straight at Len, and bites off his sword. Milieu, with motherhood spiking off, slashes the beast, demanding this prick step side. With 2 more coming, Len manages to kick that nasty beast away like a football. Suddenly, he delivers a huge-ass blow and one hit to his neck and slashes him away. Milyu is stunned to notice Len's ever-burning prowess, while this little dude bets his harsh training skills come in handy. Later on, Grandma Rig assures them that Roy fell into an unexpected condition that has calmed down. This puts Milyu at ease, but Len wonders how his dad's ass got beaten up by those weak beasts so easily. The only thing that makes sense is that Roy has come across that wanted beast. Though with reinforcements still afar, Len worries if the beast will end up running into the village, rampaging havoc. Later on, Len runs into the little boar he slashed the other night, which could be a great prey to lure that wanted beast. Erasing the animal train on his father's behalf, a sudden smoke sucks the beasts into the bracelets, freaking the heck out of Len. Just then, this dimwit learns that his demon sword summoning technique and sword of wood level have increased to 2 by absorbing the beast's stone. Afterward, Len musters up the courage to tell his mother about taking on his father's duties the next day. As the Ashen family's heir, he swears to restore peace in the village, so he bets his overprotective mother will let him do this one time to protect the villagers until reinforcement arrives. The next morning, Milyu grants him a safe pass to the forest, only if he returns before dusk with Shiraji Rock in case he loses his way home. She mentions a sharp, pointy rock coming right after 1.5 hours in the forest, which is Tsurugi Rock. Moving alongside, this moron recalls a stronger boss as a powerful natural magic user. Just then, a boat shocks him, but with his little wooden stick, he releases a tree sprout attack that entangles the beast in the vines. Jackpot. Thus, he uses this golden chance to level up his practice with these wild boars. Afterward, this skinny boy shocks the villagers by bringing back 12 boars on his first day, and then on his second day. By the 5th day, Len kicked it up a notch, with no sign of a wanted monster anywhere. Other than that, this hard-working kiddo is 3 steps closer to getting a metal sword. Back home, he learns how his father isn't handling the herbs well enough to hold his life. Knowing the herbs are running out, Grandma demands Milyu fetch her formula box. After learning there is a need for rondo grass, he recalls using this healing element a lot when playing the game. Just then, he leaves everything behind to storm into the deep forest at night to dig out the healing herbs his father desperately needs. At the foot of the rock, Len climbs up in search of rondo grass, only to find loads on the roof with a pile of bones and ornaments. Suddenly, he bumps into some terrified little boars until he glances at the dark, creepy creature, the D-rank unique monster, Chief Wolven, behind him. A rare breed D-ranked monster, Chief Wolven, packs a rare item if a lucky prick defeats this thing. However, Len, ever the smart head, looks to be in a hurry tonight, but this creepy monster does not want to lose the audience. Moreover, Len figures out how this rare beast has top-notch speed with the power of wind magic at hand. Knowing this wind-style user can create invisible hands to steal items, Len curses his darn luck for running into this shithole. Thus, he decides to blow a gut-wrenching hit with his natural magical attack after getting close to his guts, and let the game be over for this creepy beast. Just then, he spots Wolven's bleeding leg, realizing how his father got a chance to run away from this horror. This is the same reason this huge-ass Wolven did not come closer to the village at all, as his father served his heroic purpose in protecting them. Hence, he refuses to give up on her. Len, focusing on staying calm, brings out his nature magic to entangle this giant beast, only to stop his movement even for a bit. That said, he jumps like a rocket, only to land a thrashing hit on his head, only to have his only wooden sword tattered into bits. Pulling his hair off to figure out how much mana just this broken sword took to be summoned back, he is 1 inch away from being swallowed by this hungry beast. Chewing the little boy, the beast slams into the tree, but he shields himself with vines to cut himself a slack. Even with healing items, he still wishes to keep them for his father rather than using them on himself for now. With a quick idea, he entangled the beast with vines to hold him off for a moment until he ran to a few boars to gather enough energy. This little hero refuses to die out here just now, as he must look for a way to save his father. Now Len is able to unlock his metal sword right when the beast is about to chop off his head. But Len's very last power attack, which was a sword summoning at the right time, stabs through his head. With a wholehearted single attack, Len's final blow beat the living daylights out of this beast with his new metal sword. A few seconds later, his bracelet is on its way to absorb Chief Wolven's magic stone power. With 0 to no power to head back home, Len notices the horses rustling down this way. Later on, the knights from Klausel rush down to Len's home, asking his mother to clear out the way so they can put him in his room. Aside from that, they tell Milieu that he has been holding this bag desperately on his way back here. Len was knocked out senselessly. No one knows what went on except this bag, which holds rondo grass inside. This is where Milieu breaks down in tears, learning how he made his way out to get herbs for his father. News breaks out to Vios that Len Ashton has made mincemeat pie of the beast, Chief Wolven, all by himself. When Vios is outright shocked, the lady hears everything about this boy, Len, slaying a D-ranked beast who exists in this territory. 2 months later, Len whips out the magic sword of Bandit, which is in the gift collection of magical swords obtained right after he brought the beast down. After loading his backpack, a knight catches up to this moron to remind him of the specific orders for him to call upon them before running errands in the forest. Upon asking, Len explains how this bag is loaded with Wolven's hidden treasure, which he thinks of selling to help the villagers. Suddenly, the knight bursts the good news up in his face that the lord looked to be buying the valuable medicinal herbs at a slightly higher price than the market. This news thrills him to the core enough to put a smile on Len's lips. He bets that this village might have a brighter future over the next few decades. Back home, Roy is already on his way to full recovery. He is damn proud of his son for punching above his weight and scaling heights in such a short time. Handing the treasure over, Roy demands to know what his generous little son desires, and Len wishes to take this huge crystal ball. Len bets this thing is definitely the Cliché pearl, which happens to be extraordinarily rare, like a phoenix rising from the ashes. However, Len uses this opportunity to put his bracelet among the treasures, so he can put it on openly in public. Aside from that, his father couldn't be prouder of his amazing son coming a long way, which puts a smile on Len's little lips. After such a long period of terror and fear, peace has been restored to this nameless village, with no worries yet to come. While Len, ever the righteous, helps his mother with the laundry today, the lad comes across a mysterious bystander sitting under the tree's shade. Closing the gap, Len bumps into a strange girl whom he has never seen in this village before. Just then, this gorgeous girl, with a round of cool breeze flying through her beautiful hair, asks if he is Len Ashton. With a nervous tinge, he muffles a yes but ponders hard about where he has seen this girl before. This is where Destiny's fateful encounter throws our hero, Len Ashton, together with a total stunner under a tree. Looks like the new beginnings of a story are sprouting with this mysterious encounter. So this nosy fate brings our guy, Len, face to face with a cutie pie under a tree. Turns out that this little chick's been dying to meet him for ages. Whipping her sword out, she demands to know how the injuries are. Throwing curveballs at the poor, exhausted kid, Len mentions them as healed but is curious to know how she even knows him. However, without wasting another breath, she begins her reckless sword fight, which makes Len whip out his metal sword out of thin air. Whoa there, Fighter Jack, a little handshake might be better to start this business. This impresses the lady, seeing how he handles his sword so damn well even after falling behind. Len finds this girl to be really skilled with the swords, however, he decides to end this here before anyone gets injured. This decision puts them in a reckless position, with Len ending up on top of her, claiming he has won. Muffling up words to offer her breath, the lady finally manages to mutter so loudly that Len is pretty close to him. Jumping right out, this moron apologizes for tripping over her like that. Although the lady isn't ready to back down right now, calling for a round 2, Lord Baron's lackeys end up on time to put an end to this shit show. Looks like Vios, the great knight on his horse, makes a dramatic entrance to retrieve the princess right away. Without wasting another breath, the princess stands up to explain herself, with a letter for the Ashton family as her father's representative, speaking highly of this family's great achievement of reigning over Chief Wolven. The princess states her father's great expectations for Len Ashton's future. Just then, with a hint of rosy cheeks, the princess introduces herself as Licia Clausel, the Saintess of White. Len's jaw is about to hit the floor so damn hard. Such a plot twist in his wake that he bumps into the top of the warrior princess, the Saintess of freaking White standing right before him. That's enough to shake him up for countless nights. Meanwhile, Vios, ever the grumpy general, throws some serious shade at Princess Licia for ditching them out cold. But hey, Len still has not snapped out on this hole, killing the target Saintess in the future situation. Back at Ashton's home, Princess Licia gets along with Milieu and Roy, while Len's brain is still short-circuited. The lad is super whacked out by this hardcore popular character, who hasn't joined the MC's party, appearing out of thin air here. Not to mention, with her awesome personality and beauty, he recalls her having zero to no romance drama. So basically, she is the unconquerable heroine with a sword that can slice a dragon in half or just confuse Len like before. Licia, with her twinkling eyes, asks if Len is planning a return visit. She blurts out the fact that she came all this way to meet the guy who vanquished the beast. Turns out that her little sparring session was enough to convince her that Len is pretty damn courageous. Meanwhile, Len recalls taking 10 days to reach Clausel City, which is why he picked this place to avoid this chipmunk. Never expecting to run into the Saintess herself, Len tries his best to credit her father to sway her off of this. This chick, ever the cutie, finds Len a bit too humble, unlike the nobleman. With a nervous sigh, Len puts out his decision to stick to this village, but Lekoa, with a sharper nose, sniffs out his plan like a bloodhound. She asks if he doesn't like her, but Len blurts out something about taking care of his father unless a beast hits the village again. Licia, however, scrolls through a million ways to get her way, and she has just gotten started. Afterward, Princess Licia Clausel enjoys a delicious meal with the Ashton family in their village. The night comes by with beautiful moonlight, and Len is caressing the horses on his farm until he hears rustling footsteps reaching closer. With a 90-degree head turn, Len, ever the Captain Obvious, asks the princess if she is looking for a post-meal workout. Whipping out her sword with a charming grin, she mutters that this just makes things interesting on her part. Don't know what this chick is cooking up. Someone gotta put reins over this girl. However, she lets the poor soul know that she got Vio's and Len's parents' permission to do a little sparring of her own. Not to mention, this sweet cheek threatens this ugly moron that this might extend her stay if he refuses to pick his sword for sparring. Without wasting another second, Len picks up the sword with flashing speed, nervously chuckling at getting into the workout mood. It comes as a shock to her, demanding to know why he is going out of his way to reject her this much. All her bets are on this. Thus, Licia asks Len to spill out his reason for rejecting her if she beat you badly, with the additional bonus of coming with her to Clausel. Upon asking for the contrary, Licia confronts him about visiting this village again. Considering the long face, Len is sure that this would turn out to be a lose-lose situation either way. And then it was on. These two are dancing around each other with blades hand in hand and crackling. Licia lunges at Len with her sword, who barely dodges in time, catching her off guard. Looks like this sparring session is going to be a real clash of clumsy dud and cutie pie. Licia, wide-eyed and shocked, demands to know how he blocked that move, but Len is interested in knowing why he is so obsessed with beating him. In a clash of steel, Licia, sweating beads rolling down her face, states that she loathes losing to a prick like him. Sparks flowing off the blades, she blurts out that it is a dishonor for her as the Saintess of White to lose to someone of her age. With endless blocks, Len looks to be at an advantage here, but Captain Clueless finds her reasoning a bit tedious. As the ground trembles over this heated spar, Licia talks about the Saintess, blessed with proficiency in swordsmanship and physical abilities, with the bonus of sacred magic. Thus, she swears on getting the win this time, one way or another. All of a sudden, Len feels Licia's vibe being all different, as she is faster and a totally different person, claiming this to be her secret sacred magic. So basically, Len recalls the sacred magic of blending the healing power of white magic with the counteracting power of the undead curse and the detoxifying strength of holy magic. Turns out that the Saintess isn't just a pretty face. Basically, she got a magical sword and boosted strength all rolled into one. Len, ever the curious guy, asks if she could have used this super move earlier, but she mentions Vio's cranky ass being butthurt about overusing this one. Though this ugly moron thinks Vio spoiled her a bit too much, he believes it is his time to shine. With Len getting used to her movements by now, he breaks no sweat in leading the sword up to her neck, making her clench her teeth. However, she snaps right out and retreats to attack again, but Len makes her trip with a full flip. So this girl did not know what hit her sweet ass, as Len claims this to be his win. Again, suddenly she sparks right out, refusing to give up just yet. Licia's jaw drops, but she is a fighter, not a quitter. Someone suddenly intervenes with a sound of applause as Vios enters, praising Lord Len for beating the crap out of Licia's sacred magic at such a tender age. Vios believes that even with Roy's training, Len must have put in additional strength to become so efficient in swordsmanship. Setting aside his gaze, he hopes that Princess Licia will have enough motivation stored up after this match. Her spirit sank like hitting rock bottom while muffling on agreeing with Vios. Other than that, Licia, losing her spark, gives off a quick apology while thanking Len for such a great experience. Just then, she marches off to rest for a while the cloud of gloom hangs over her. Besides that, Vios will be quick to inform his lord that they were showered with kindness and hospitality from the Ashton family. Moreover, he mutters how no one could take on the young lady, Licia, being a grown complacent until this sparring session proves to be an eye-opener for her. Len learns how Licia undertook such a hard task on Baron's behalf to visit nearby villages, which is why they have to set out the next morning. Not only that, he mentions Licia mastering the political and military arts with excellence, with top grades in the academy. Though Len believes this overbearing girl might be a pretty direct and good person after all. However, he wonders what has gone on to bring out such despair in the end, as their childhood wasn't talked about that often in the game. The next morning, Licia ended up not sleeping at all after such a grave loss, refusing to give up. So she ends up writing 2 letters, one for the family and the other for the boy, as an invitation to the clausel. With Vios checking it out, he finds the boy's letter sounds like a clear-cut love letter, which shocks her to the core. He admits that this sounds like the desperate plea of a maiden in love, which flushes her face hot red, as she expressed her desperate desire, demanding that he speak to her to tell her not to give up on him. Licia tells Vios that it is true that she wishes to spar with him again and again. On the other hand, she bets that this must be her first personal letter. She convinces Vios that the letter will be disposed of on their way when they depart from here. With the gust of wind, the rustling of the horse, and her long face ahead, she loses the letter she did not intend to leave behind on the way. Moving on, Len goes on practicing for the demon sword of banditry, which pulls off a bird's feather and ends up throwing Licia's love letter to Len, and things are just about to get really interesting. With the news that the wind delivers with the help of nature mixing with fate, Len wonders who this person is inviting him to clausel. Realization hits him hard, as if Princess Licia wrote this one just for him. Out of the blue, the knights, other than Vios' group, have appeared in a flash. Turns out that the crest belongs to another knight from another domain, alerting his brain. However, Lord Len chooses to stay calm when these guys surround him like a herd of hyenas. Addressing the Ashton family's village, the knight possesses a message from the Viscount Givens to the Ashton village. Len recalls this Viscount Givens' domain off to a northern area with no relation to his family whatsoever. Holding off a higher rank than the Baron, Len decides to keep an eye on these duds. Back at Ashton's crib, the knight delivers his greetings to the family, while he mentions having a message for Len Ashton as well. Thus, the knight offers Len employment under Viscount Givens' residence, but Clausel's knight tells the lad that his Lord Clausel invited Ashton first. However, this handsome knight lays out that Len Ashton hasn't blurted out his decision, keeping both lords' invitations on the table. But the station knight of Clausel states how this village comes under Clausel's dominion, demanding courtesy to run through Clausel to get to Ashton. With a loud sigh, the knight of Viscount Givens prepares for his retreat, with a wish to visit Ashton again. Back home, Roy explains how these guys desire this nameless village to be under Viscount Givens' domain now. Factional disputes, Roy claims the conflicts have reached out this far. So basically, the Liamal Empire cuts into 3 halves with the Imperial faction, believing the only one to lead the country is the founder of the nation, the Lion King. Next is the Hero faction, composed of heroes that once defeated the Demon King powered by the 7 major noble houses, considered to be the protagonist faction. All in all, the Viscount Givens reside in this faction, believing in getting rid of the Imperial faction to make the Liamal Empire more democratic and free. Third comes the Neutral faction, filled with pacificists respecting both major factions, with Baron Clausel belonging to this faction. However, the Clausel Knight believes that the Viscount Given must have a hidden agenda stored in this cheap trick. Though Len wishes not to get entangled in this shitshow, Len is damn sure of being dragged into something unprecedented. Thus, Len makes a good point of mixing his father's injuries and calling it a lack of military strength. Roy agrees with this smart head, but his father would call this one an abnormality. However, the knight agrees with Len that the feudal lord holds the responsibility for territorial damages. So these two have figured out that Viscount Given is trying to snatch this golden chance to frame Baron Clausel with recent disturbances. Piecing it all together, Len points out that the Chief Woven incident might have been a cheap trick by Viscount Givens himself. Hence, the knight praises Len's intellect for reaching this conclusion so damn fast. While knights set out to report back to Lord Baron, Len cannot help but wonder how he is running into the same hero faction that were his allies in the game. In winter, Len thanks the Clausel Knight for helping his village prepare for the winter. Reaching home, a surprise amazes this little guy when he spots Licia reading a book by the table. So this sweet chick lays out the damn reason that if he refuses to come to Clausel, she would have to go out of her way to come here instead. With the amazing surprise of Licia visiting Len again, she hands over to the lad a magic crystal as a gift to relieve him of his water-bringing duties for the shower. Other than that, she, with a long face, describes how this gift is a quick apology note for the Viscount Givens incident. She mentions her father's urge to protest, but this old man is trapped in the high-ranking mess. With her saintess rank scowling under her breath, she mutters that she has zero to no influence to help her old man. Even after being blessed by the elfin deity, the saintess hasn't done anything significant, like defeating a demon lord. Later on, Len shows her way to his father's room so she can heal Roy's wounds just in time. So this cracked head just realizes she healed Roy in their first meeting as well, which stuns him to the ground. Next is their sparring session, with Len noticing her sharper movements developing in such a brief time. Until this cute chick trips over in his arms, Licia, with her hissy fits, demands to know how he cannot stop grasping a few breaths like a human. Not knowing the extent of his stamina, she confronts him about loving her time in sparring with him. Hence, she sets up a sparring session tomorrow morning, promising not to lose again. Moving on, she lingered for a few days with her various sparring sessions until the time of her departure. Sweating beads rolling down his face, he expects this cracked chick to visit much sooner, which is a disastrous idea for Len. To his 11th spring, Roy bounced back to a complete recovery, and Len spots the Viscount Givens Knights getting off a surprise visit. Thus, bearing good tidings, the Viscount's Knight spells out that the Viscount highly regards their abilities with the additional offer for their son. Dropping a happy bomb, the Knight offers Len Ashton's admission to the special class at the prestigious Imperial Cadet Academy. A bolt from the blue, the ground fell from under Roy. He was struck speechless as the Knight mentioned only the 7 nobles' heirs and Imperial's great talents visiting the special class. With this huge drooling offer, the Knight bets that Len Ashton might fall for this one for sure. However, Len, ever the righteous, lays out his zero intentions of leaving this village and loses this golden chance of being a noble. Other than that, Len believes getting in there might put him back in the game's timeline. Roy lets Len go by his will, promising the Knight to send the message back to the Viscount of his tiding, serving the Clausel family for a long time. Just a few days later, Len bumps into unconscious Licia with a high fever. It turns out that Licia suffers from a sickness affecting her high magical prowess, tampering with her immune system. Moreover, Vios mentions that this fatal problem might require rest for 2 to 3 weeks, while Len assures Vios of taking their time. Finally, Len, after 3 days, got a chance to meet this red-cheeked Licia, who started with a quick apology. Afterward, she lays out how the Clausel family is doing their best to show the Viscounts their strong determination for the villages. Calling her a sore loser, an annoying brat with a good-for-nothing attitude, she mumbles about ruining her late mother's reputation, who hopes for greater things. Thus, she musters up the courage to spell out her last goodbye to Len, staying true to how she cannot act like a spoiled brat any longer. Not only that, the Ashton family goes out of their way to pledge their loyalty in such harsh times, so she is deeply sorry and thankful for such kindness. Deeming this girl to be pure, Len accuses himself of keeping such dark secrets, wondering if this is truly the end. So this news breaks out as nothing but a couple of long faces that might not see each other ever again. This sweet chick hurries over to write a letter to her father while borrowing the ink from Len. Just then, Len breaks out the secret that she is living in his room with the ink stacked inside the stationery box on his desk. Again, with the long face cursing her sweet face for troubling Len, he goes out of his way to demand a spare fire lighting tool on his next visit. Not a subtle hint, but this princess drops the truth bomb of never visiting this place ever again a few times. Not to mention, this cute chick accuses him of disliking her for such a long time. However, Len, ever the clumsy bunny, demands the princess give a heads up before charging at him with her pointy sword. Hence, Len decides to have a nice chit-chat once she is done resting. After throwing curveballs literally everywhere, Licia feels her head getting lighter by the second. Just then, she hopes to write her father a letter but ends up spotting her love letter in Len's drawer. This shakes her to the core. Unbeknownst to her, how did Len get his hands on this? Licia's face turns beetroot red in shame at her love letter being exposed to Len. In a panic, she stutters that Len's awesome, but how the heck is this moron not throwing this away? A million questions flooded her cracked brain. Meanwhile, the Clausel gang's all hands on deck to offer Roy assistance in the hint, while Roy leaves Len on the house repairing duties. Milieu heads over to grab medicinal herbs. a plan is set in motion to wait for another week before they head back to Clausel. But then rain pours hard as Len calls out a short break to head back home. Just then, he smells something burning nearby. He races to that side, only to find his house in flames. To make matters worse, all knights have their necks bitten off. Knowing Licia is still inside, he marches head-on with his metal sword, only to bump into this shadowy dude with a D-ranked mana eater on his shoulder. Raging onto the shady dude only to collapse near his foot with freaky incense spells to put these two to a long slumber. Before he knows it, the darkness takes over. In his wake after 4 days, Len, chained to the carriage with Licia, calls out to the princess until the shadow dude wishes him good morning. Len thinks this guy has got to be a beast tamer, but he cannot choose to be reckless here with Licia's condition getting worse by the minute. Even then, keeping her safe is Len's top priority. So Len wakes up from a wild dream that got super sideways for him, making him wonder if things could have gone better this way. Trapped inside this wooden magical tool, he recalls his father's gruesome death by Chief Wolvel and a shortage of medicinal herbs. Not to mention, a few days later, the village got raided, and with his mom on the verge of death, Len screams on top of his for not holding his promise of protecting her. Super cool Saintess swoops in with her sacred magic like a total boss to save their asses from this erupting fire. Though things take a turn for the weird, that moron wonders what went super wrong with Len killing Licia in the end. Now Len wakes up to some shadowy dude throwing water and food up his face, demanding food service for a barely conscious Licia. With Licia at her limit, Len decides to make his move tonight at all costs. Thus, he whips out his metal sword, breaking through his chains and out of the magical tool. So basically, this wacky moron jumps out of the carriage with Licia on his shoulder, only to become a snack for the mana eaters patrolling nearby. Besides him dodging the mana eater, the shadow creep tatters the carriage with his entrance to hold his pricey baits. Throwing off his metal sword like a deadly boomerang, the shadowy dude is outright shocked to the core of this kid getting his hands on a weapon. Dodging the hit, Len has successfully broken his necklace with the metal sword. Thus he summons the demon sword of wood to trap the mana eaters and the creepy dude in the vines to hold them off before he makes a rushy exit. With the shadow dude not letting it go, Len calls for his banditry sword, snatching his staff right out of his hand like an easy-peasy thing to do. Like a knight in shining armor, Len takes Licia on the creepy dud's horse, thrashing the man eaten aside by his staff. However, it's not the last he has heard from this cloak guy, as he unleashes all the forest beasts to chew up Len Ashton for good. Even then, he continues slashing the beast with his metal sword, time by time, to clear out his path back home. Back at Clausel, Lizard, Licia's father has sunk into a bit of a situation on his hands. Vios reports back on Licia getting snatched up by some dude with a loss of heavy men. His father, hitting rock bottom, does not judge Vios for not being her shadow. Knowing her daughter, the lad bets her own daughter waltzed off others with her pretty ideas. On his way to inform the Imperial Capitan and all the nobles, Lizard gets a strange, surprise visit from the Imperial capital. This alerts the Clausel family to take responsibility for negligence in harming Viscount Given's territorial grounds, and things just get a little more spicy. Len and Licia, ever the lovey-dovey cubies on the horse, finally find a cool, shady tree to relax on, as Len feeds Licia some herbal medicine. With Licia in her arms, Len walks a million miles ahead with his horse, telling how her case of high fever has trampled down. Upon asking, Len describes exchanging monster materials with medicinal herbs in the nearby village 3 days ago for additional travel supplies. Moving on, Licia recognizes this to be the outskirts of Viscount Given's territory, pointing at the Baldur Mountains. Thus she describes that she knows the way from here on out. Len recalls that the final boss battle in Part 1 of this game took place in the Baldur Mountains. Rest assured, Len, ever the lifesaver, cools this sweet cheek to worry about herself. This dimwit is damn sure his family is fine, as they weren't home that day when the fire broke out. Not to mention, he calls this one a golden chance to see Clausel for himself, greet the Baron, and do some sightseeing before heading home. Moving along at this damped might, Len, ever the smarthead, hunts down something that will be their roasted grilled dinner for tonight. Just then, she whips out the broken necklace he tore off from the shadowy dude's neck, thinking this holds off as evidence. After enjoying a little dinner and a cozy night, they head off on their horse in the morning. Stumbling on the river and getting a nice bath, Len decides to take a short break here. With her rosy cheeks turned flashy red, remembering the love letter, Licia decides to ask Len something. She demands to know if his peeny butt is treasuring the letter inside the box. Though this dimwit still doesn't get the words of the maiden's heart, Licia wrestles with words to spell it out for him. Len rumbled with a million thoughts about the weird stuff in his room, like the time his mother caught him collecting pretty rocks and stones for no reason. So this cracked head ended up muttering how this has been reigning in his mind, which makes the girl unable to grasp her breath. Not the sharpest tool in the shed, Licia believes his bull crap about her flooding his pea-sized brain. Len, bless his brain stuck in the clouds, thinks she is off about stones coming out of bores or something. Just then, Licia, ever the cute bunny, hands Len her first name privilege, which shocks the boy to his core. Heading over to the next village, Len makes his exchange for more supplies. Upon asking, this blabbermouth old lady spells out that the adventurer mentions the Lord Baron up for punishment for his sinister acts. This flips the lid of Licia, demanding more answers with a hissy fit. This makes the old tramp race his answers about Baron sending off crazy monsters against Viscount Givens. Without wasting another second, Len and Licia rush towards Clausel at great speed, while Licia calls this utter bullcrap. Back at Clausel, Viscount Givens has entered Clausel territory to reign over this territory, with the hero faction's dirty work behind the scenes. So for Leomel to rise from its decay, Viscount believes in getting rid of Clausel at first. Viscount Givens against Lizard Clausel. The Imperial Court continues to look into this matter with great Imperial law, setting tomorrow morning the time to decide everything. Later, Lizard has already sniffed out the great trail of this plan. He expects to be punished in a few days in the Imperial Court, but Vios assures the Lord of taking this to a verdict and holding off a trial until they figure out this mess. Even with Vios' great words, Lizard points at that creepy captain over there, packing a buttload of stuff to ensure his victory. While putting Licia to rest, Len scratches his head for some hardcore strategies to save everyone. Upon asking, Len tells this sweet chick he is wondering how he can work this out. But hey, the lady asks this dimwit to be a bit more casual. Looks like this chick is still flooding his head with the name shit, telling Len to call him by his first name too. Licia demands to head home as dawn breaks to testify about the kidnapping. Push comes to shove, Len explains, needing some hardcore evidence to link all these crappy incidents to get a win against Viscount Givens. With dawn breaking, these two buddies rush ahead to reach Clausel territory in time. Making their exit to Clausel through the forest, they coincidentally bump into the Viscount Givens Knight by chance, freaking the crap out of these two. With the Viscount Knights surrounding them from every edge, Licia tells Len to trust her with this, as she is about to take on a risky task. Getting into her royal mood, this sweet chick demands the knight's explanation for this broken necklace, jolting his brain for a second. However, the knight plays with a cool attitude, but Licia has already picked on his twitchy eyebrows. Ever the sharpest girl, Licia decides to have this evidence examined by the Merchants Guild to track down the kidnapper. Blood drained from his face, the knight was sweating bullets like crazy. Licia marches on, claiming that this device user will be pulled into court on charges of defaming the Clausel family. Without wasting another breath, the knight requests that Licia hand over the device. But this hardcore chick reminds Viscount's lackeys that this area is under her jurisdiction, and even the ones that they attacked. Making her way out, the knight almost lands a slashing blow, only to be countered by the legendary Len Ashton. Not only that, Licia, with the last laugh, reminds this tedious knight of giving them a flawless chance to bring this attack to court under Viscount's alleged way of hurting the Clausel princess. With the holy magic and natural magical swordplay, those two make their way out to pour mud on Viscount's plan. With their raging escape, even with Viscount lackeys chasing them down the hill, there awaits their formidable Mana Eater's sidekick, the Beast Tamer, to block those two. A sudden storm of mushrooms and rats erupts out of nowhere. Licia borrows a fire sword, while the rats attack even the Viscount allies. So this shadow dude considers this a pretty harsh time for his buddies down there under the swarm of wild rats. Even this creepy tamer has a hunch that these two stubborn kids will no longer resort to peaceful ways, so he must enforce his routine. With the creepy turn of events, the flower army on the ground, and the giant bees flooding the sky, the beast tamer is ready to chop these two for the Mana Eater's next meal. Unbeknownst to the creepy dude, these two are crime partners in slashing everything that heads their way. With his natural magical vines holding the beast back, she is cutting through to make the way out nicely. Upon asking, Licia assures Len that she is holding her ground perfectly, as she worked her ass off to fight against him. Aside from that, the Captain Obvious, Len, spells out that they have to beat the shit out of the Beast Tamer to reach Clausel much faster. Out of the blue, a crazy man-eating giant leech rolls out of the ground to eat them for lunch. However, Len, ever the hotshot bum, whips out his metal sword, slashing this beast in half. On the edge of his seat, Licia can't help but notice how his strength is off the charts right now, which stuns him like a surprise. His metal sword slash is so windy that it takes the beast tamer's disguise off his face. This long-haired handsome dude praises Len's fierce attack, but Len is outright shocked to spot Yerk in the midst of all this mess. However, this cracked head has no idea what this dumbass is doing here. Aside from the raging army of plants, underground beasts, and Viscount lackeys chasing Len and Licia, they stumble upon this creepy beast tamer who happens to be Yerk. Turns out that this creepy moron was one of the bosses in Legends of the Seven Heroes Part 1, with his nasty magic power bringing excruciating pain. Although Len, ever the smart head, never thought of running into this crazy dude. Out of all the odds, Len, as an adventurer, just had to bump into this guy more than anyone else on this entire continent. Rolling back his mind, Len is damn sure of not running into this creepy nut job until he enrolls in the Imperial Cadet Academy. This unsightly scene raises even more mysterious questions than answering any. So basically, this guy, the Eld's killer, has been cast out of his homeland and is roaming off like an insane rogue. Even after getting awarded a power seal bounding his hands as punishment for murdering the chains of his brethren, the lad still holds no mercy. However, Len recalls Yerk's gruesome bum as a mean-spirited, heartless tyrant who might get his stats lowered to a cheap level if it weren't for his staff's strength. Len remembers breaking that only staff, clipping the wings of his natural magic flow. Thus, Len assumes this shadow dude, Yerk, got a nice price for handing 2 kids over in exchange for information about removing this Elden seal. Aside from that, Licia demands Len answer his stance on this battlefield. The Mana Eaters hang around Yerk, and on the other side, there are 2 chief wolven surrounding him. Len holds no promise of coming out of this unscratched. However, Len, ever the clumsy bum, forgets he is pairing up with the Saintess of White right next to his puny arse. With a dazzling blow of sacred magic, she rips and tears every single thing on her way to bits. Heading on, Licia pulls off his super cool moves to block all the fire magic from the Mana Eaters in the sky until she slays its wing in half. This assures Len and Licia of a possible victory, with no scratch aside if they can make out of this together. Thus, with the horse jumping this high, Len is damn sure of using this golden chance to chop Yerk's head off right here. At the right time and place, Len summons his metal sword, which stabs through his dark heart, drilling a deep hole in it with a Mana Eater hanging off the sword like stake. However, this rat-ass Mana Eater nudges the horse back, causing a terrible fall for Len and Licia. With the horse cheering for his safe landing, Len holds Licia, asking if she is alright. There is no doubt that Len is convinced that the sacred magic is taking a huge toll on her sickly body. Aside from that, Len notices Yerk bleeding like a fountain but still managing a villainous laugh, cackling like a hyena. Though his whiny ass complains of being so damn close to his purpose to undo his torturous seal only to meet this end. He loudly confesses to chopping and slaughtering a pile of people he could get his hands on, only to stand with a shower of blood. However, Yerk, the creepy serial killer, admits that he no longer can kill anyone for his entertainment while bawling his eyes out. Until his light bulb flickers, giving him a nasty idea much quicker than the speed of light. The game is not over for him. As the air hangs heavy, Yerk stands right back, drooling over the sight of people fearing death, which loads him with unspeakable pleasure. Besides the regular ecstasy, Yerk, ever the pervy sage of the creepy loads, craves for this sight more than intertwining bodies reaching filthy climax. Len, ever the innocent duckling, got no idea what this ugly moron is blabbering about. Without wasting a damn second, Yerk commands the Mana Eater to chop off his bloody arm off the socket as things are about to get really disturbing. Moving along with Yerk's utter madness running wild, the Mana Eater proceeds to chew out his arms along with the seal, shocking Len to his core, who is still holding a fainted Licia. Like a brain-dead loser, this dude got his sealed hands chopped off by his pet Mana Eater, who ends up being a loaded punching bag. Realization hits him hard, knowing even this wretched sealed arm is not enough to relieve him of his curse. With his eyes bulging out of his socket to face the harsh reality, Yerk finally faces his end with no regrets. Without wasting a damn breath, the metal sword stabs right through the creepy, sad dude who got his hands chopped for no reason. Other than this gruesome event, the potion hanging off the old tree breaks apart and showers shredded glass on Yerk's face. This guy's heartless body reeks of pain from getting such an expensive potion, bringing nothing to his end. However, Yerk wishes to give Len a parting gift, ordering his Mana Eater to finish off these weak-ass ducklings. Just then, this superpowered Mana Eater is whizzing before his eyes, smashing nasty hits at Len and almost squashing him to bits. And things are just getting crazier here, while Len bets this ugly guy now holds a B-ranked position or even higher, kicking his butt for real. While this heroic boy, Len, is getting beaten to shit by this Mana Eater, Licia can't help but worry about this ugly rat losing his mojo. Although Yerk was getting his last nasty desires fulfilled, Licia manages to whip out her last strength to gather sacred magic to heal Len fully. With the Mana Eater on his way to pancake these dimwits, Licia tells this loser to run off without her. But hey, our hero's self-worth is no joke to leave a damsel in distress. Thus, with a sudden slashing hit to the man-eater's foot, Len manages to push him away at the right time. All of a sudden, Len's bracelets suddenly act out, about to bring a new sword on its way. Just right for the occasion. Here's it, Len swears to protect the princess with all his might, while summoning the newest sword that blows a giant disco ball hole into the Mana Eater. Even Yerk's rusty face had no idea what had gone down. With the rise and shine in Clausel City, people are pretty bummed out by this strange turn of events, taking Baron Clausel to the imperial capital. Going off like a gossip chain, people talk about Viscount, the former Minister of Justice assistant, working behind the scenes of this, walking down the road to head to the imperial capital. But still, this dumbass knight can't figure out why Viscount is so damn obsessed with Len Ashton. Licia as the Saintess definitely holds a big price, but the country knight's normie son holds no significance in his eyes. However, this dumbass recalls Viscount, ever the grumpy nutjob, desperately yearning to get his hands on the Ashton family, which guarantees his rise among the heroes. Setting aside this chit-chat, Viscount desires a report about the strange light seen at dusk. However, this grumpy old man predicts this to belong to Yerk's side of events or the Saint's magic. Cutting to chase, the knight ensures of fetching a fast report on the side events. Besides that, Viscount lets this prick know that there is no room for any more errors. Just then, the gates open to find a horse standing in their way, beaming in the sun. With such a dramatic appearance to strike everyone's pea-sized brain, she refuses to let Len's efforts go to waste. Moving on, she addresses Viscount's cranky butt, who is about to teach the Saintess a bit of manners, trying to act all cool. However, Licia sets this old dude's tedious mouth on fire by telling him she has no criminal manners. But hey, this Viscount guy can't help but let out a flashy grin to notice how this little chick is barely holding her ground. Out of the blue, Licia whips Yerk's broken necklace, demanding an explanation for Viscount's dirty ways. She commands the authorities to give it a round of investigation to pull off a relationship between this and Viscount's nasty tricks. Like a cool, snaky old man, he blurts out that this princess is totally a shady character, as she claims to have been attacked by the elf he hired. Licia is trying her best to display all possible evidence of the knights attacking her until she passes out in fatigue. This brings out the charming grin of the Viscount, who has everything planned, but Vios demands Licia's accusation be considered for the Clausel family's side. But hey, Viscount looks to be getting a bit hasty about getting his hands over Clausel City. He demands the imperial capital to clear out such the demands of the Clausel family. All of a sudden, Len, ever the mysterious loser, demands Viscount's knight to show off his hands right away. Just then, Viscount Givens demands to know the name of this insolent kid. But hey, this super cool dude, Len, blurts out that he is Viscount's knight standing right next to him, which jolts his cracked brain. So picture this amazing turn of events. Len Ashton burst out onto the scene like a knight waking up at the right time. Fuming mad, Len demands Viscount's knight put his hands before the audience. This all zone is getting pretty heated for some reason, as everyone awaits a full-on boiling drama to melt out an epic knightly facade. Licia mentions that this ugly loser's hands are full of scars that Len and she made in their battle. With Vios taking the lead from here, the knight, like a crying baby, mumbles about being at work all the time. This flips Vios' darker side of having the urge to whip out the sword if the knight does not go his way. An unsettling chain of murmurs begins as the knight shows his injured hand on display. Vios, ever the righteous, confirms this ugly dude's handful of burns and scars from only magic and swords. Suddenly, Viscount bursts into laughter to hear how holy magic did dirty on the poor knight, so he asks Vios to put off a new council for this one. Just then, this grumpy butthead Viscount screams about taking Lesser Clausel to clarify everything in the imperial capital according to the law of the empire. Moreover, this cranky old man declares this discussion to be over, with no trial on hold and the decision remaining the same. Just as they are about to leave, Licia is bawling her eyes out like a whimpering kid with no way to save her daddy. Wasting no such time to head over to the imperial capital, Viscount declares the end of this filthy entertainment business. Crying like a faucet, Licia can't help but wonder what she can do at this point for her father. A sudden round of applause steals the show and drops the bombshell as the center of attention, claiming this sight to be utterly wonderful. A scene stealer treading lightly to make a dramatic entrance, he praises Licia's outstanding courage like a true noble. Other than that, this hot mess stealing the show claims to never run over such a touchy story that precisely mirrors his current feelings. Just then, Viscount Givens demands to know this scene stealer to introduce himself already. Thus, he calls himself Edgar, demanding Lady Saint leave this one to him as she has done enough remarkably. Moving on, Edgar only wishes to settle this story to its end without bursting others' boundaries set by the two. Addressing Viscount Givens, Edgar, with patience, delivers that he has come on behalf of his lord's command for Lord Clausel's side. Flipping his lid, Viscount, with a rise of fury, asks this old dud to show his lord's name. But hey, this super cool old man whips out his lord's crest, which is enough to send shivers down everyone's spine, including the imperial capital. So basically, this wise old man seems to have delivered a stand with no mention of his lord's name. This hurts this grumpy old man, Viscount, right in his core, as he bets this pack must be plotting something real big this time. However, Edgar recalls the imperial laws, which suggest that tampering and plotting against the noble crest marks off a capital offense, and that might burn his butt to the ground. Not to mention, Edgar, ever the cool-headed old man, believes that a viscount knows nothing of a noble's value. As these guys come no closer to understanding such a thing that runs over their pea-sized brains. Aside from that, the old man turns to deal with the imperial court for letting down their former plans. Edgar lays out in line that he has been given free rein to take over this matter by his lord. Furthermore, he spells out for the imperial court, who looks to be as freaked out as the Viscount Givens squad, that Edgar speaks in his lord's name only. With that aside, this super cool elderly man states that this trial raises more questions than answers, as most things don't even add up here. Other than that, this trial looks to be full of holes and inexplicable points, like a real head-scratcher. So without wasting any more breaths, Edgar, the super cool old man, demands the imperial court conduct a retrial in his wake for Baron Clausel. Before the imperial court jeep blurts out anything, Edgar reminds this nutjob that his lord is siding with the Clausel family. Aside from that, Edgar looks over to that beaten-up kid and can't help but admire this little guy. So he recalls the words addressed to the boy named Len Ashun, serving endless gratitude for various favors he pulled off. Therefore, if something like this erupts out of nowhere, Edgar promises to see it through till the end. Thus, this old man marks his lord's words of lending a hand in this filthy, dramatic mess. This scares the daylights out of both the Viscount squad and the imperial nutjobs, stunning them out cold before such a heavy presence. Sweating bullets like crazy, Viscount clenches his teeth in horror, wondering how this guy is making a move all so suddenly. Like a filthy old guy sweating like a leaky faucet, Viscount looks to be having a hard time getting how this guy just lends a hand so freely. So to burst his bubble, Edgar delivers how these mischievous turns of events, like a miracle, put his master in a position to take care of this freely with no worries whatsoever. Besides that, Edgar addresses the fact that Lord Len Ashton, like a true lifesaver, saves someone's life as a bonus to this day. Like a best-selling history book walking by, Edgar sends his snide remarks about this grumpy old guy, Viscount, getting all cocky earlier. Now sits like a deflated balloon over his horse. After such heated turns of events as flipping the side of the coin, Len wakes up in the Clausel Palace only to spot Licia sitting with her head down over his legs. Sitting right up, Licia jumps high enough to pack him in her tight embrace, spooking the little kid. This scene flushes his cheeks already with a girl holding him so damn tight on waking up. Just then, he notices Licia crying like a baby with her eyes dripping like a faucet, and bawling her eyes out to have Len back, who learns of having a month-long slumber right at the Clausel Palace. This shocks him to the core. However, Lezard Clausel gives Len a special visit, demanding that the Clausel family take care of his wounds before he departs for home. Upon asking to be filled in on details, Lezard tells this adventurous story of how he got saved from the imperial court's treacherous hold. After Edgar declared for the retrial the same day, Lezard revealed that he made out with no charges whatsoever. Though Lizard Clausel pays his gratitude to Len and Lisha for pulling off such a heist to bring him back to his ground, he is not guilty. Moving on, he spells out Viscount's name being tattered with countless suspicions as the first trial is scheduled in his territory. Turns out that cranky butt took a shortcut to hell using a hidden poison. A million thoughts over his mind to hearing Viscount's sudden suicide, as Lizard bet that his close relatives might have stressed him over the edge. Aside from that, this guy reveals how Viscount's mansion rose to flames and turned to sweet nothing but ashes on the ground. Brushing off the bad guy stuff, Lizard brings out Len's attention, thanking him for pulling off this great noble's card, who lent their power to flip everything upside down at the last minute. Like a clueless captain looking for clues, Lizard paints the picture with a hint of Chief Wolven. Turns out that his first ever defeated D-ranked monster, Chief Wolven, was in top-notch condition to sell out his internal organs. This beast, like a valuable ingredient, is easy to spot in such good condition, with all the organs making up the desired medicine. Turns out his fine skills won the heart of Marquis and saved his bedridden daughter from a lifelong illness. After the deal broke out, this guy came all the way in case of this emergency and sorted out the whole mess. But hey, all this ruckus has been dealt out by our hero, Len Ashton. Afterward, Lizard hands over Marca's invitation card for Len to his mansion. After a bit of a good look at this emblem, Len recalls the greatest aristocrat of the royal family, which belongs to Marca the Ignat, whose emblem represents the final boss. With his military and literary prowess holding his pride of airtime transport, this royal nutjob might be plotting the Demon King's revival any day now. However, Len, ever the smarty pants, recalls his dead daughter triggering the nasty devil out against a whole empire, assuming Len is changing the stories by now. A week later, Len was visited by his parents, and they handed over his saved belongings right back to Len. Later on, Len's mind wanders to the time when his bracelets absorbed the magic stone to whip out such a beaming sword out of nowhere. What freaks him out even more is that something manifested in the sword when Len's hand touched Lisha. Passing off such an intense glare, Len makes Lisha's heart flutter. Putting out a charming smile, he blurts out, wondering if this sweet chick holds a super secret magic stone inside her body. Making her want to crawl under a rock, her nervous stutter confuses Len as she demands to know if her father blurted out this secret. Aside from his gibberish, Lisha asks him to hold this secret to the grave, as she is one of the most powerful saints to carry a magical stone enclosed in her body. Rambling with a million thoughts, Len wonders if this powerful sword has a relation with the legend of the Seven Heroes disaster, which strikes a possibility. On the other hand, Len bets it might have hopped out in case of need. Aside from that, Len, with his undying efforts to avoid Lisha, ended up coming this close to Clausel with her. Although Len is damn sure of changing the story's direction when tampering with Roy's life, Yerk's death, saving Ignat's daughter. This led him to wonder if Marcus still strays off the path to betray the Empire. Out of the blue, Lisha calls this nutjob back to the palace, calling Len her hero even if he beat the shit out of her in the first meeting. Back at the Imperial Military Academy principal's office, Clonoa Highland sighs so damn loud, wishing for someone to wipe off her tardy boredom. So this story is set in the Imperial city grounds of the Legends of the Seven Heroes, which has a shitton of weird incidents breaking out like a loose cannon or an epidemic as the story progresses, bringing out the strange daily news of a certain noble finally running to his grave with an unknown cause. As strange as it can get, there is talk about a crazy royal guard betraying the third prince, or something much crazier with no control. Aside from these trash cans on the loose, the civilians look desperately out to blame anyone. Some are trashing the other country for invading their holy ground, and some call this God's wrath unleashed. With a buttload of people getting a brain-dead crazy idea, there is something else that is the case rather than this all. Turns out that all the weird incidents happening recently are nothing beyond common sense. Aside from that, there is no guarantee for a man to act normal when he is madly plotting like a maniac hungry for vengeance. There sits on the throne, the handsome, dark-haired father, Marca de Ignat, plots his biggest scheme to be run over by the Empire. So basically, Marca's daughter is rumored to have contracted a non-contagious illness, leaving her bedridden. However, the cure to bring her back to life is the rarest but only in the hands of the Imperial family. After his deep hunt to whip out any traces of the Chief Wolven put to the ground with no tattered internal organ, Mark is left empty-handed. Push comes to shove, and Marcus goes out of his way to beg the Imperial family to let the lad have some to save his daughter. Although the nasty royal buffoons refuse to give away their emergency supply to Marquid, they urge him to brew the rage of vengeance in his bloody eyes. Other than that, the Emperor's action is out of concern for reserving the materials in case of the imperial family's emergency run out. So basically, this selfish ruckus leads to a result with Marcus Ignat's daughter never making it out alive when it comes to the end. Moving along, Marquis with his daughter brushes up with morality, scaring the daylights out of her. This sows the seed of great vengeance after holding deep resentments against the imperial family. However, flipping the tables around here, there was one that went down this time. A future like before may not go down this time. Later on, Edgar, on a darn good day outside, is about to serve some exquisite tea to his lord, telling all about his colossal adventure. Slurping down the tea, Marquis hears astonishing words about Len Ashton with a serious case of awesomeness. Edgar, ever the super cool old man, bets that this guy, Len Ashton, holds a pricey value that the lord would definitely agree on. But hey, Ignat does not look so bad. Such a darn hottie with a cup of hot tea, he loves every part of this story, pouring water on his frustration for his majesty. Before Edgar goes on further, Marcus holds him right there from taking the imperial court's side yet again. Although his eyes give off a dark depth, a voice interrupts these two gentlemen. A gorgeous girl calls out to Ignat as her father. Turns out that Ignat's daughter, after being saved from that bedridden sickness and emerging from the valley of death, stands before him. After having the death tap dance on her shoulder, she plays around with the maids only to laugh and walk away. Moreover, the disease might still have a mark, but this gorgeous girl still has a spirited soul. Fiona, the daughter of Ignat, spots Edgar for the first time on his return from Clausel City. Just then, Edgar hurries to Fiona to lend his hand, but the young lady puts on a brave face by handling this one on her own this time. Aside from that, Fiona looks to be darn excited to know every little detail of the Clausel City trip. Yet Edgar, ever the super cool old-timer, marks this trip as being too memorable for him. Other than that, this super skinny old man admires Fiona's sweet, humble tone with commoners like them. However, she lets this old stick know that her mother has engraved this tone deep inside her. But still, a desire burns in her heart as she moves to see her father. Cutting to the chase, Fiona shows her deep desperation to visit Clausel City to express her gratitude to Len Ashton herself. Turns out that this little thing reigns in her father's mind as well, that the lad lays out Baron Clausel's wishes to hold for the time being before making the move. With different sets of factions, Ignat points out the fact that nobles have different dealings and tidings to attend to. But Fiona, ever the stubborn chick, convinces the dearest daddy to go with the letter instead. Though this vengeance-loving dude finds this idea alluring, Fiona still needs to hold her horses to respect Baron Clausel's wishes for the time being. And things just get really crazy from this point on. Back at the palace, Len, ever the smarty pants, looks to be testing the water and running his numbers when observing this rare item, Surakia's blue pearl. Long story short, the crystal egg cannot be shattered, but a single touch sends a flare of enormous power his way, enough to leave some goosebumps. Turns out this enormous magic power might soon hatch, and he might pledge his sworn loyalty to Lord Ashton as his master. Things are getting interesting with new stuff sprouting out once in a while. Polishing his rusty brain, Len recalls this egg holding a monster that takes on the Demon King with the power of ice and darkness. Even the rarest item, only a few get their hands on it, but are unable to hatch it and end up trading it for some cash instead. Out of the blue, Princess Licia spooks his sweet soul into deep thought. Barging in on his overthinking spree, she spots this ugly moron still scratching his head for that big-ass jewel. With a quick apology, Licia, bearing a beaming smile, asks him to spare some time for her. Turns out that this crystal ball popped right out of Chief Wolven and hasn't been burnt to a crisp in the house fire. Len mentions his parents dropping off his belongings on their last visit with a pair of clothes. So basically, this moron is aware of a superpowered monster having a really warm slumber somewhere inside, so Len decides to keep this egg out for safety. While on the subject, Licia demands to know when this guy is packing to leave for his village. Hating to break it, Len tells the lady to leave right after meeting with her once more. About to bawl her eyes out, this emotional roller coaster begs for it to happen at least 1,000 times. However, this blockhead does not get the hint of the maiden in love trying desperately to hold him off. Len points out that this is a bit of a long plan, which might take 3 years. Like a crybaby paired with her waterwork tantrums, Licia puts this room up for renting his butt by the orders of her father. But this guy won't budge an inch this way, so she requests that he tag along a little longer. Giving away the green light, Len and Licia spar on their follow-up routine alongside some casual shopping and roaming the grounds of Clausel City for the first time. Hitting up a menswear shop, this sweet chick, ever the cutest little sugar mommy, buys off a decent suit for Len Ashton using her allowance. Though this moron tries to hold this chick back from going all the way reckless with her money by buying something he might never use. Out there, these two nutcases are having a nice day out. However, a few days later, the Imperial Knights chose to visit Clausel City to check Licia's swordsman skills. Vios bets this is a golden chance for him to showcase his talents to the big guys of the continent. To spice up his head, Vios gossips that this leader of the Imperial Knights has mastered the technique of the Holy Sword. Walking by, Vios lays out that the Holy Sword technique by the hero Ruin is a sword technique for plenty of knights out there. After knights master the sword technique, the Academy offers to mix it up a notch with the combat skills with a dash full of magic power. This brings out a good shot for a non-skill bearer. While Vios settles with the Imperial swordsmanship to protect his beloved lord with all his might, he humbly asks to mentor this tiny kid for the Imperial swordsmanship the next time. Just then, Len recalls Licia mastering the Holy Sword technique, with no limits to attack or defense but also support. This moron is convinced that all-rounder skills might perfect this technique in no time. Turns out that Licia holds the rank of Sword Saint, just one rank below the highest. Moving on, Vios blabbers about trying to master Gokengi, whom Len recalls belonging to the Lion King faction, an ancestor of the Liamal Empire. A million bad memories flood his brains about Gokenji being a really nasty deal. Len bumps into Licia and gets a first-hand invitation from this dude to showcase his talents right away. With so-called light sparing, this dude tells him to be himself rather than a hopping copycat. After blowing this guy's head, Len gets a really nice scan of the Holy Sword technique, which does not suit his style. Len asks this dude to teach him basic swordsmanship. Afterward, upon asking, this commander guy mentions Len withholding a fierce talent for some other kind of technique that needs attention. However, Len spotted this sweet cheek being frustrated on his behalf, so he calmed the lady down. After knowing Licia has the same issue, this chick hopes to hit it off with a nice school good for the swordsmanship she needs. After a deep chit-chat, Len figures this girl to be so real up close, as he promises to find a better school to polish her sword skills. Under a blanket of stars, the maid of Marque the Ignat helps Fiona with her stubborn ways to build up her endurance out in the cold. Cursing herself for wasting such a long time, she wished to hop right back to her duties as a noble. Thus, Fiona has made up her mind to stand on her feet to thank Len Ashton for saving her from the horrors. While Fiona takes a short break, Marcus keeps an eye on the ladies not working her butt out at night. Out of the blue, Ignat surprises Lady Fiona, catching her off guard as he mutters, keeping an eye on his little princess for such progress. Aside from that, Ignat talks about this letter straight up coming from the Imperial Military Academy just for her. This strikes her dumb enough until she recalls that her preliminary exam results must have come out. Without wasting her breath, Fiona, ever the cutie, breaks the news of passing this one flawlessly after sweating hard work even on her deathbed. Thus, he tells this pretty lady to give it a good shot for the final exam, so she can come face to face with Len Ashton to finally thank the guy sooner. Back at Clausel, Lezard tries his best to keep this super cool kid as a knight here. Turns out that Len, in regard to his family's safety, wishes not to return to the village after what went on with that obsessive Grandpa Viscount. Although Lezard mentions his father having trouble dealing with nobles as opponents, he wishes to have him stay at the Clausel mansion for safety. This puts a smile on Len's long face, wanting to solve everything with his strength alone. However, Lezard endorses this notion of Len leveling up to high ranks to even make the great nobles a bit uncomfortable, becoming the Sword King. Out of the 5 Sword Kings, those guys are like loose cannons acting on their will. Len, hitting rock bottom, thinks about this opponent who scares the daylights out of him. Upon asking, Len gets assigned a similar job to the village about wiping the monsters off the premises. Other than Lezard, Len, this superpowered whiz kid, has fine permission to take on tasks of the Adventurers Guild. Heading there, this moron registers himself as the adventurer taking on tasks from now on. Moving on to the task board, Len tries scrolling through to find a great deal of fun, like D-ranked monsters, but that looks to be pretty rare in this region. Suddenly, 2 jacked up guys praise Lord Len for kicking Viscount's butt. With these 2 yappings, Len spots the steel-eating gargoyle munching on metals and minerals with no harm to the people. Heading out into the forest depths, Len recalls his ability to summon 2 magic swords at once. After his swords level up, even with a quick warm-up, he enjoys a quick lunchtime. Afterward, Len brings back the E-ranked monster with no stones attached, paying off a nice 600,000 G. A month later, Len, sending out panic attacks to Lisha, has made up his mind to move out of the Colossal Palace. Thus, he breaks out handling the old mansion. It is better if he moves right into it. Just then, the store Lisha bought him a dress from sends out the delivery for Len as he gives Lisha a dress on his knees. Look at these little sweethearts getting at it in their cute, bubbly ways. Knowing he bought it with his hard-earned money, Lisha, the sweet chick, holds this shirt a little too tight. However, it causes the princess's moods to shift with the speed of light.